A few of you ask, how did you do it? And the truth of the matter is, I'm still doing it. How are you being today? I hope that all is well with you. I cannot believe how overwhelming the response was to my letting go video announcing that I was going to put my fabric up for sale. Well, I knew that there were some people that resonated with me. I knew there had to be. I knew I couldn't be the only one. We usually never really are the only ones, right, when we're going through something. But it was just so comforting, like, to know that there are people out there who can relate and who are in the place that I am, that are interested in doing something about their situation. I changed the launch date from December 5th to December 16th. So when December 16th comes and I launch, then I will have done it. I'm looking forward to that date. But when I tell you, and I am almost embarrassed to say this, right? My dad passed away December 16th, 2024, at the age of 90. And it slipped my mind for some reason. And so I had selected another date of December 5th, which is also significant. And I can't for the life of me figure out how that slipped my mind. You know, I don't know if it's because I moved away a month before. I don't know. But when I was talking about it to my oldest son, he was like, "Oh, Mom, I thought you were going to say, December because of Granddad." And I'm like, that's what I should have said. And what's also interesting about that is he was a businessman. And I've been thinking about him a lot since I've been going through this period of creating my own business. We would talk sometimes about how he got started, right? He had a trucking company with his brother, and for a long time he drove trucks for other people, and he decided, I can do this for myself. And so that's what he did. Today I'm going to talk about how I'm doing it. I set my workstation up in my dining area. And in that area, I have a 54-inch wide table that I use to measure. And then I had my laptop very close by, because as I got information from the fabric, I would just enter it into a spreadsheet that I had created in Google Sheets. Now, it only takes one time to go through something in its entirety, right? And you're at the end, you're all done with it, and you realize, oh wait, I could have done this differently. Oh, I should have done that. I didn't think about that. Well, that's the version you're gonna get. So get something to write with and something to write on, and let's get to it. So I don't even have to mention that measurement is, the accuracy of your measurements is so important. Like, anyone who sews knows that. I would make sure that the edge was straight, because sometimes if you have jagged edges, you need to get to the place where you have a straight edge to put against an edge, a straight edge, right? So you need a straight edge on the straight edge to get an accurate measurement. Once I got that right, then I had fabric weights that I was putting all on the fabric to keep the fabric steady. So let's say I started the measurement up here, right? I would, smooth the fabric out, come down here, put a pin, a straight pin, in the fabric where it ended here, and then drag the pin to the straight edge here and do it that way. Does that make sense? I repeated that process as often as I had to, depending on how long the fabric was. Anything that was less than 54 inches, of course I had a tape measure on hand. So let's say I had a piece of fabric that was twice the size of the table, twice the length of the table. 54 inches plus 54 inches is 108 inches. Divide 108 inches by 36 inches, you get 3 yards, right? Because there's 36 inches in a yard. One thing that I did also was I would round down to the nearest eighth of a yard. So there's 4.5 inches in an eighth of a yard. So let's say the next piece of fabric I grab is, I'm able to get 254 inches and 19, I don't know. So what you would do is say 54 times 2 plus 19 is 127. 127 divided by 36 is 3.52. Now it's a little over 3.5, but it's not enough to be 3 5/8, which is 3.625, right? So I had to round down to the nearest 1/8, which is 3.5, to make sure that you don't say you have more than you do. So keep them edges straight and round down to 1/8 of a yard. Have yourself a conversion reference sheet on hand. I don't care how good you are at math. If you find yourself measuring something, at the end of the day, or, early in the morning, or you're tired, but you're trying to get through it, just use the reference sheet. Don't depend on your brain to do it. Just make sure you use that reference sheet for accuracy. So once I got the fabric all measured, I came up with a description for the fabric, something that was easily identifiable, right? That I could go to it. I checked for stretch, and what I didn't do, but what I'm going to tell you a good idea would be to do here, because I had to come back and do it, would be to check for opacity. Is it sheer? What is the weight of the fabric, right? So you're going to describe this fabric to the best of your ability, so that the potential customer will know exactly what it is that they're buying. My spreadsheet had 4 things. I wrote a description of the fabric, something that was going to be identifiable later. Black cotton that I got from New York, right? So that I could get the fabric, I could get to it really quickly if I had to. A column for the description, a column for the length, a column for the width, and then I had a price column, right? And then a column for notes. There was some fabric that I looked at and I'm like, this is a little dirty. I'm going to try to wash it to see if it comes out. There were some fabrics that I just wanted to put notes on that I could refer to, so that before I actually sold it, if there was something about that fabric that needed my attention, I could do that before I actually listed it for sale. Now, one thing I'll say about price, your price is going to change. My price changed, right? So the price that I put on that spreadsheet could have stayed the same. It could have changed. So don't be surprised if, as you're dealing with your fabric and you go along, that the price changes. It happened to me too. If I had to do it over, I would also add other characteristics of the fabric that I ended up doing later, right? So do it at this point. I think this would be the perfect point to do it. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about drape. How does the fabric drape? The opacity. Is it sheer? Is it, opaque? The hand of the fabric, how does it feel? Is it drapey? Is it smooth? Is it, scratchy? The weight, is it lightweight? Is it midweight? Is it heavyweight? And for you may want to add more than that. But those are the things that I added to my description in my store that actually tells the potential customer, what it is they're getting. Now, what I did wait to do was to actually talk about the fabric. So with each piece of fabric, I tried to tie a story into it, or if I had a memory about it, I wanted to share that with people. You know what I mean? Some things I didn't have much to say about. I got a white piece of chiffon, from Joann Fabrics. Well, here it is. And what I also did was I checked other fabric sites to see kind of how their stuff was listed, right? So I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to go through a piece of fabric, right? Measured it, got it logged in, right? And so now I folded the fabric up and I placed it by content, by fiber content, right? And set it in a pile, a stack. And so I had stacks all over. I had, cottons, I had chiffons, I had silky types. I had a category called other, because I wasn't sure what was in it, right? And so we all bring a different knowledge level about, fabric content. And for me, it was never about the content as much as it was about how it, feels and how it looks, right? And speaking of how it looks, this would be a good time also to photograph your fabric, I think, but I didn't do that. Like I wanted to get it all inventoried, back on the shelves. And then I took it out by column and photographed it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now this turned out to be very, very beneficial for me, unbeknownst to me, because in Shopify, you can group your fabric by collection. And so it was real easy for me to just build a collection based on the categories that I had already built. So that I was thrilled about. I was thrilled about that. So imagine this. I'm taking fabric out of the sewing space, taking fabric out of the sewing space. I get through the process. I have stacks of fabric all over the place. So then at that point, I start bringing the stacked fabrics that are already, categorized in collections, so to speak, and I just start placing them back on the shelf. I started that process in July. So I think it took me about 2 weeks to measure close to 1,000 yards of fabric. And to be honest with you, that wasn't every day. Like there were some days I took off, there were some days, it wasn't all day long every day, but I had gotten into a system, right? I had gotten into a rhythm. I think that's what made the difference. So whenever I did work, it was very productive. So at this point, if you decided to photograph, then you're ready to go, right? At this point, the only thing I have left to do to my fabric is to photograph it. And then you're going to work on your spreadsheet. You export the information from your computer in the CSV format and you upload it to whatever platform you're deciding to use in their format, right? I use Google Sheets. And so mine was a little bit more complicated. I think Microsoft, if you have Microsoft Excel, there may be more compatibility with Microsoft Excel. So I had to do a little extra work that I'll talk about later. But my whole important and most important part about this whole step 4 is to format your spreadsheet in such a way that you can easily convert it to whatever platform that you're deciding to use. And when I tell you this is going to make the difference, it is going to be a lifesaver and a time saver. My step 5 is photograph. I photographed last. So I started out using my Canon, which I'm recording on now, and I wasn't getting it right. And this was bothering me because it was important to me to get this right, but it wasn't working. The minute I pulled up my iPhone, it was perfect. So I used my iPhone for all the photographs. We talked about 1, measuring the fabric. Right? How you're going to measure it, make sure everything is accurate. The main thing is accuracy. You want to make sure you got the right length, the right width, all of that good stuff. The second thing was to describe your fabric. Describe your fabric in such a way that people would know exactly what they're getting or close to, right? Because your hope is the description of the fabric, the specifics, coupled with the picture is going to give them a really, really good idea of what they're buying from you. The third thing I said to do was categorize the fabric, right, by content, if you can. So put it in categories that's going to eventually end up being your collections. That's how you're going to organize it on your shelves, right? So now you could photograph it so that by the time you put it on the shelf, it's also photographed. The last thing I will say is that you should think about how you want to sell your fabric, right? So do you want to be cutting like small amounts? I know you don't. You want to be having, yards of fabric left over? I know you don't. So you need to really think about how you want to sell your fabric. So for example, I don't do fractional yardage, right? So you cannot buy a yard and a half. And there's a 2-yard minimum. If I have 2 yards of fabric that are available, you have to buy all of that, right? You can't just buy 1 and leave me with a yard. So that was part 1 of my process. Okay, I want to take a moment to encourage you. It's a process, right? So don't let it overwhelm you. Just take it in little by little. There were some days I didn't work on it at all. I just didn't. I mean, I'm a grandmother, a mother. Some days I just didn't work on it. And so don't feel like you have to rush and do anything, because I think that's when it gets to be a little no fun anymore. So let me know, have you made any progress? Have you started doing things? Have you just been thinking about it? Which is what I did for a long time. I just thought about it. I hope this was helpful. So thank you again for joining me today. As always, until next time, take care.